In 1975, New York City nearly went bankrupt. Overnight, garbage piled up. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their jobs, and subway trains broke down on tracks covered in graffiti. But as the city teetered on collapse, life did not stop. It transformed. If you think you know what it was really like to survive those streets, think again. What happened inside those crumbling neighborhoods changed not only New York but the world. The real story starts the moment you wake up and step into that chaos. Before the city even wakes, the streets already tell the story. Black plastic bags line the curbs, stacked waist-high in places, waiting for sanitation trucks that now come less often. The smell of old food and sour milk hangs in the early air, especially in summer, when the heat draws out the stench and the rats. Corner trash cans overflow, newspapers and coffee cups spill into the gutters, swept up only when the wind or a passing foot does the work. This is what happens when the numbers on a budget sheet become real. In 1975, the Municipal Assistance Corporation, known as MAC, steps in, slashing city spending to keep New York afloat. Sanitation crews are cut. Pickups drop from 3 times a week to 2 or even 1, and whole neighborhoods learn to live with the mess. On some blocks, the garbage never fully disappears, turning vacant lots into unofficial dumps, layering broken furniture and bags of trash until it feels like the city is sinking under its own weight. Every pile of waste is a reminder that the crisis is not just in the headlines. It is underfoot at the start of every day. Rush hour hits the subway like a test of endurance. On the platform, bodies press shoulder to shoulder, everyone eyeing the edge for the first flicker of headlights through the grime. The train finally arrives, a battered R46, fresh from the factory but already infamous for cracked frames that can stall a whole line. Doors screech open, and the crowd surges inside, squeezing into cars covered wall-to-wall in graffiti. The air is thick with sweat and metal, no air conditioning, and every stop brings a new wave of riders pushing in. A transit worker, uniform faded from years underground, watches the clock and listens for trouble. A snap from the undercarriage, a signal failure, another breakdown. The transit worker mutters, "Some days you just wait for the crack," knowing that a single flaw could trap hundreds in a tunnel for half an hour or more. By 1975, a subway ride costs 50 cents, but even that does not buy reliability. Delays stretch commutes, and every breakdown changes the rhythm of the whole city, forcing people to recalculate their days around a system that might give out at any moment. Inside a cramped apartment, the day's wages are counted on a scarred kitchen table. Rent is only $250 a month, but paychecks barely stretch, especially when unemployment hangs around 11% and another factory on the block locks its doors. Parents keep extra uniforms folded for jobs that might vanish overnight. Some pick up shifts at bakeries or clean offices after hours. Kids learn not to ask for extras. Every token, every slice, every movie ticket is weighed against the week's groceries. The city feels like a constant balance, where a single missed shift can change the whole week. Downstairs, the corner store keeps a battered ledger behind the counter, a running tab for families who cannot pay in full. The shopkeeper writes names and numbers in blue ink, trusting neighbors will settle up on payday. Sometimes debts linger for weeks, but nobody is turned away. In places like Bay Ridge, these quiet arrangements keep the block afloat. People swap news about layoffs, share tools, and watch each other's kids. When the city cuts services, it is these networks, part hustle, part hope, that fill the gaps and keep the lights on, even when the future feels uncertain. A single block in New York in the 1970s could feel like its own world. In the South Bronx, burned-out tenements stand next to stoops where grandmothers gossip in Spanish and English, keeping a quiet watch over the street. Harlem's barbershops and storefront churches pulse with radio soul and gospel, while Spanish Harlem's bodegas and bakeries fill the air with the smell of fresh bread and café con leche. On the Lower East Side, Punk kids and old Jewish neighbors cross paths in hallways where Yiddish, Polish, and Puerto Rican Spanish mix with thick New York accents. In Bay Ridge, shopkeepers greet every customer by name, jotting down IOU notes in battered ledgers and swapping news about who is out of work or who needs a hand. Chinatown's narrow streets echo with Cantonese as cooks unload crates of bok choy and fish before sunrise. Little Italy's delis and bakeries keep family recipes alive in cramped kitchens, even as the old men outside argue about baseball in Italian. Each neighborhood draws invisible borders, with unwritten rules about who belongs, which corner is safe, and whose stoop you can sit on. Pastors and priests know every family's story. Bartenders pour drinks for regulars who have weathered every kind of storm. Elders on the stoop act as block historians and unofficial security, their eyes missing nothing. Even as buildings crumble and city services vanish, these webs of connections hold people together. In a city that often feels like it is falling apart, the neighborhood is what keeps daily life stitched tight, one block at a time. As sunlight fades, the city's rough edges become a canvas. In the South Bronx, a teenage DJ threads extension cords out a window at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue, plugging turntables into borrowed power. On August 11, 1973, a back-to-school party fills the rec room, and DJ Kool Herc lets the breakbeats ride, inventing a new way to make people move. Kids crowd the floor, inventing dance steps that will echo across decades. The block outside smells like smoke and fried food, but inside, the music drowns out everything else. Downtown, a different kind of noise pulses through a Bowery club with peeling paint and a leaky ceiling. CBGB hosts the Ramones, who blast through 3 chords in 2 minutes flat. The crowd is thin, maybe 30 people, most of them barely old enough to drink, but the sound is sharp and raw, and every night feels like a dare. In 1974, these gigs are paid in beer and subway tokens, but the Lower East Side's cheap rents and empty storefronts give young bands room to experiment. Outside, the street is risky, but inside, the music is a shield. On the west side, velvet ropes and flashing lights announce the arrival of Studio 54 in 1977. Disco thunders through the doors, and dancers in sequins and denim chase the night, escaping the city's mess for a few hours. Uptown, graffiti writers sneak into train yards, cans rattling in backpacks. In 1976, a crew covers an entire subway car, top to bottom, end to end, risking arrest for a shot at morning fame. Their names ride the rails from the Bronx to Coney Island. For these young artists, music and paint are more than escape. They are proof that beauty can grow from neglect, and that even in the city's darkest corners, something new is always being born. Night in the city brings a different kind of tension. Streetlights flicker over empty lots and burned-out buildings, while sirens cut through the quiet. In some neighborhoods, the smell of smoke lingers long after the last fire truck leaves. The South Bronx alone loses nearly 40% of its housing to arson during the decade. Whole blocks vanish, leaving families to crowd into what is left. People walk quickly, keys ready in hand, glancing over their shoulders. The fear is not just rumor. By 1979, New York records 1,838 murders, the highest in its history. Headlines: warn of a serial killer, son of Sam, who stalks the streets, making young women and couples look twice at every shadow. Parents call their kids in early, windows locked before midnight, yet the sense of danger never fully leaves. Every night feels like a test of nerve, with the city holding its breath for whatever comes next. At 9:34 p.m. on July 13, 1977, the power flickers, then vanishes across the city. Streetlights snap off, subway trains grind to a halt in tunnels, and apartment buildings disappear into sudden blackness. For a moment, everything is still. Then chaos erupts. Looters smash windows along Broadway and Fulton Street, hauling televisions and stereos past empty police cars. Sirens wail, but most officers are overwhelmed or stuck in traffic jams with dead signals. By dawn, more than 1,600 stores have been hit, and police make 3,700 arrests. But on some blocks, neighbors light candles and carry flashlights out to stoops, sharing food from thawing freezers, watching over each other in the dark. Kids chase fireflies while their parents swap news and keep an eye on the block. The blackout turns the city into both a battleground and a village, one side breaking down, the other holding together by the glow of borrowed light. Today, New York City feels safer and cleaner, but it's also pricier and more polished, and less accessible for ordinary people. The city's grit once forced strangers to build community just to get by. What we've gained in security, we risk losing in soul. Thanks for watching, and please share your memories or thoughts below.